This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. This is one of our special client showcase episodes. Listen to these two amazing speaking-driven entrepreneurs. Their stories are very different, but I think you'll pick up some trends, patterns, behaviors, traits, pivots, and influences that you can use right away in your speaking-driven business. Let's tune in. We are here with the awesome Kathy Parry. How are you, my friend?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for all the great work that you've done. So you are an 18-month alumni of our program. And when we started this adventure together 18 months ago, paint the picture of sort of what drew you to the program. What was life like? What was work like? What was your speaking business like coming in?
And I was mostly working in the realm of corporate wellness. So my background's in nutrition and wellness. But I was a former trainer for a Fortune 100 financial institution before that. So I had this financial background and training as well. So I was sort of at a crossroads. Corporate wellness had kind of dried up, for lack of a better word, because a lot of the organizations I was working with were now being represented by their insurance carriers. So the insurance carriers were coming in and saying, no, we'll handle your wellness and it's no additional charge to you. And so I was up against that. So I just sort of thought I need to do something. I need a shift. If I'm going to make this work, I need a shift. And I wasn't getting the fees I wanted. They weren't paying. I wasn't getting the conference work I wanted because I was sort of pigeonholed into this wellness. And there's not a lot of speaking roles throughout the country for wellness. There's some top gurus out there who are awesome. And if a big wellness conference is looking for a big name, they'll get one of them. So yeah, I was at a crossroads and I needed help.
So you mentioned a couple of problems. So it sounds like you had a little bit of competition from these big giant corporations. There's also some fee pressure. What kind of fees were you getting before? We'll do the Kathy before and then the Kathy after, but let's start with the Kathy before. What kind of numbers were you putting on the scoreboard prior?
Well, my highest fees were about $3,000, and that was for some wellness conference work. But, 1 hour lunch and learns that were local, I get $500, $800 for that. So nothing great. And the conference work I did get, I enjoyed it, but it was just far and few between.
So I'm just curious from an emotional standpoint, because some people, they go, man, I just can't figure this out. It's very frustrating. I feel like I'm banging my head against the same brick walls.
It was getting scary. I was getting to the point, like, is this the right thing for me? Because I needed to begin to make more money was the bottom line. I was comfortable where I was, but I needed to be making a change. Yeah, so there was definitely a degree of frustration. There was that fear. There was definitely a fear setting in of, do I have to get a job? I knew my lifestyle was not suited to working for someone else. I have a child with special needs and a lot of other activity going on. So I needed to figure it out. And that was where I was when I met you.
What was different? What did you feel was different about our program and our work together? Because had you done a lot of other kind of coaching or mentoring or bought courses or anything previously?
I absolutely had done that. I'd bought courses. I created a great online course, again, back in the nutrition realm. I mean, it did okay. I loved doing it. It still exists. It's about taming your sugar habit. So I bought courses on that. I was mentored through that. I'd hired some other much smaller level coaches, just to help me with some branding. I have a great mastermind. And maybe that was one of the things that really pushed me because a couple people in my mastermind were doing great stuff, really excelling. I think the only difference between me and them was they were more focused. They had a tighter, I think what one of your first stages is, crystal clear. And I was no longer crystal clear as I moved away from this wellness. And when I came to you, I'd interviewed a couple other coaches.
Here it comes. What did you hear from me or what did you hear from us that was different than them that kind of swung the pendulum towards coming in with us?
I liked your approach and that you were very methodical. Like, I need a method. I need that I'm not loosey goosey. Hey, well, we'll work that, and then we might, that one might work, and I was felt like I wasn't getting the methodical process that I needed when I spoke to some of the other coaches.
And then just your experience of going through our process. Tell me a little bit about that, about how did that feel different? What was some of the early wins when you could sort of start to tell that this was working, and give us kind of the journey through the program when you started to feel some traction?
Okay. Well, I didn't want to do the modules. I remember saying, I don't want a course with modules. I've done modules. I don't want to do that. And you're like, do the modules, do the modules. Well, what I realized in the modules is you gave very specific things to do. So it wasn't conceptual. It was like, say this sentence, use this subject line. So I love that. It's like, okay, I've got a roadmap. I know what to do. And then, of course, having one-on-one calls with your team. Teresa was great at man, she is fast, just distilling, like, this is what you need. This is where you need to go. This is what you need to say. So I felt like the process was very streamlined to get me where I needed to go. So as soon as I kind of flipped and changed who I was going to be helping, it really started to come together.
And what did that look like as far as the quality and quantity of your conversations, the quality and quantity of the number of engagements, the fee levels? Tell us about that transformation and that improvement.
Okay. Well, I want to be completely honest. It was not overnight. I did the work. It was a lot of work. And
it was slow. I'm going to interrupt you and say it was slow for you. But
sure.
Slow but steady, right? Because you kept chipping away, right?
Right. I then started to book the bigger gigs. I started to book conference work. Well, then for those, I did a couple breakouts at about 3,500 a piece plus travel. Then I got up to about 4,500, and now I've booked up at 6,500.
That's because you and I had a conversation and share the gesture with people.
Okay, so I ran into David at the NSA Influence conference, and I told him I was having all this success and getting amazing feedback and amazing testimonial levels, and I'm making changes because of you, all that great stuff a speaker wants to hear and a conference planner wants their people to say. And so David just looked at me and went like this, and I'm like, what? He's like, increase again. And literally within a week, I had someone reach out to me for a national level conference, and I quoted a fee 2,000 higher than whatever I'd gotten in the past, and it's booked.
And another one, 6,500, and they said no problem.
Yep, no problem. And I have another one. I think it's booked. It's close. If it's not booked, it's almost there. So I'm quoting that price.
So let's talk about the heartbeat of the business. Like, how many of these typically are you shooting for in a month? Are we after 2 a month, 3 a month? What's kind of the rhythm that's been established?
Well, I like to speak 4 times a month. That's my goal, because I do realize that not every single one I'm going to get that fee for. If I have to travel only 2 hours, not get on a plane, I'm in Pittsburgh. I can be in Columbus. I can be in Cleveland. I can be in Pittsburgh, Philly. There's a lot around me. So I think as a speaker, that's something I weigh. Like, I'll go there for 2 hours for, I know David would say differently, but sometimes I will speak locally or not too far for 3,000-4,000. So I want to speak, 3 to 5 times a month, and I'd be happy.
And so just ballpark revenue between some of the 3s and 4s and some of the 6,500s, we're doing 12, 13, 15,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly consistently?
Fairly consistently, yeah.
Awesome. So tell us what life looks like when you're at 15K a month, give or take, plus or minus. How has this impacted your lifestyle? How has this impacted just the way you feel about your business every morning? Give us the new you.
Well, it's exciting to me. I mean, the money's obviously great, but it's also like less worry. I don't worry so much. And I know that if I want to build it even bigger, I can. To me, it's lifestyle. My significant other and I, we have 8 children between us. And he's in a flexible position as well. So me being in a flexible sales position and him being in a flexible sales position and these children, and some of them are older and out of the house, but that's just a relief to me. I don't want to have to be answering to someone else. I want to be able to create my own schedule. So that's relief. And besides that, I get up energized to work. I'm so excited. It's like, I'm reaching out to them today. I'm reaching out to them today. So it's very exciting. I wasn't this excited about my business ever.
Wow. Very, very nice. So a couple final questions. What would you say to someone who is sort of teetering on the fence, going, I don't know if this is the real deal. Should I go? Should I stay? Will this really work for me? What would your advice be to that person who is just teetering on the fence?
If you're teetering like I was, it means you need help. It means you can't figure it out yourself, which I've always known that. I've always, throughout my business, tried to find people to help me. I just always hadn't had the right person. I think many coaches, and I took coaching certification, so I know how coaching works, and you're a little bit more than a coach, you're more of a consultant trainer in my eyes. And you, David, gave the pieces. It wasn't a coach saying, well, how would you go about it? Well, oh, maybe you should try this or that. I didn't want that anymore because I'd worked with people like that. I wanted someone who really would whip me into shape. And, some people I think would say that you are that person. You'll put someone's toes to the fire and go like this. If you're teetering, then I think that's what you need. And I would give you my highest recommendation because you got me there.
So I'm going to ask you just kind of the dark side, the ghost of Christmas past. Where do you imagine your business would be today? Because we're 18 months past our active mentoring. Where would your business be today if you hadn't made the decision to invest? Or where do you kind of project that ghost of Christmas past, alternate reality? Where would that lead you today, 18 months into it, without these revelations? And I got to give you credit because, of course, you did the work and you made the decisions and you put all of the effort into this. But if none of that had happened, where would your business be today, do you think?
I don't think I would have gotten it. I think what you do very well is that mindset work. I had to shift my mindset, and it was great to have someone in my corner who believed, that's fun to have a mentor. I wouldn't be here. And I thank you. I really thank you for what you gave me. I would still be up at night worrying that this wasn't going to work.
So more money, more fun, less worry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Well, let me reiterate, you get the credit because you did the work. And the fact that we're still buddies and connecting and staying in contact 18 months later, and because, we're ears always open for the next success story or the next question, or David, how about this? How about that? I always tell people that it's like the Marines. There's no such thing as a former Marine. And there's no such thing as a former client, that we're always keeping tabs. We're always making sure that you stay on the pony and that you keep on accelerating your success. So great to check in with you, and we're going to check in again soon. Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. Let's talk, because we did this program with you many moons ago. I want to catch up with you kind of before the program, and then what you experienced during, and then where things are today. We'll have all kinds of good, fun things to talk about. But what were some of the problems that you were having when you first came to us, as far as getting booked, getting paid, getting the fees that you deserve, and so on?
It's interesting, Dave, because I was thinking about this yesterday, talking to a friend of mine. I'd gone through our local NSA chapters, Speaker Academy. And I got to tell you, that was really good for me for laying a foundation, but really, bringing that down to actually have it, figuring out who that perfect client is, what's that problem that you solve for them, what's the value of your offering. I got to tell you, I struggled with pricing, who to talk to, that would be that economic buyer to solve your problem, and then how to structure that, position them, connect with them, and then the process, going through making a great experience for them and the follow-up. I got to tell you, just kind of the details on how to do that. I love executing. I'm all about action. But sometimes when you have a little bit of ambiguity or clarity, you're putting in all this work and shotgun and stuff everywhere. And I wasn't getting a lot of results. It was really good at getting booked for free speeches at Rotary, though. I tell you that. I had mastered that.
The free stuff was no problem.
I tell you. Well, I even got turned down for some of those, but that's another story. But I got to tell you, though, that was good practice.
Yes, for sure.
Quite frankly, for me, where I was just getting started.
So tell us about the fee levels that you were getting in the before snapshot and then we're going to work our way up to where we are now, and then even during the program. But what was the kind of typical fee numbers that you were throwing out when the fees were low?
Well, you know what? I was throwing out $1,500, but the most that I had been paid for a talk up through your program, Dave, was $200. That was the most I'd gotten that somebody actually, paid me.
And then within a short number of weeks, I think 3 or 4 weeks in, you sent me this fantastic email that I still have saved. It's in my super client wonderful file that I got my first $25,000 deal. Tell us about that. Do you remember the specifics around that one?
Yeah, and that was for coaching, and you did a fantastic job of helping me, I think, connect the gap between the value of what you bring in a client's life and what you're doing for them, the economic value of that, and your pricing, right? Is that, to his organization, his business, would it be worth 10x? Would that create $250,000 in revenue if we fixed, some of the big problems he had? And I'm like, absolutely, it would. Actually, one of my first coaching clients, which was only $500 a month, so $6,000 a year, his business in the last 3 years, Dave, has grown over 500%. Right? If I charged him a 10x kind of value, he would have paid me 6 figures to coach with him. And that's what I should have quoted him. So for me, kind of connecting kind of the value piece to the pricing was huge for me to look at somebody with confidence and say, this is what I charge and why. And by the way, I'm worth it. And that was a game changer.
Yeah. Now, when you were undercharging and getting a couple $100 here and the $500 a month from the coaching client, what was that frustration like, or what did that feel like on a day-to-day basis just as an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah, you want to build a business. I mean, I didn't do this as a hobby. I want to build a business that supports my family, allows me to, we give 10% of our money away. We want to travel. There's a lot of stuff we want to do. And, you're like, you know what? If I can do $6,000 per client max, I mean, think about how many clients I'd have to work with to have any kind of meaningful income after tax and after healthcare costs and all these kind of things. I was like overwhelming, like this model does not work. So I have to change something. And that's when I actually went to your breakout at Influence, 2 years ago? And, or maybe it was I think it was 3 years ago. And I'm like, you know what? This was awesome. I need to get to know this guy, Dave, and follow up with him. And that's when I joined your course. I'll never forget it. And it was the best money I've invested, honestly, in myself, in my speaking program, and in my business that I've made yet. You should have charged more. I'll tell you that in arrears. How's that?
We're working on it. We're working on it. So, folks, if you're watching this, we are going to charge more. We are totally charging more. So you better get in on this now.
Before the course was over, and you showed me how and why I should move my speaking quotes right up to 5,000. I connected with it. In the middle of that, I have somebody reach out to me and they want to hire me, and I quote them $5,000. And they're like, that's not our budget. We can't do it. You know what we ended up landing on was $4,800. I got a check. And I'm like, you know what? It made everything real to me that actually I could make a living as a speaker. And then the feedback afterwards, we got a follow-up engagement, we got a referral from it. And I got to tell you, that's when, like, for me was like this pivot point that yes, I can succeed doing this.
When you were in the active part of the program, you were working it, we had a couple of calls that were really pivotal for you. What did you find different in this program? Because you mentioned that you did your NSA Academy, maybe you had some other coaching and mentoring along the way. How is what we do different?
Oh, that's easy, man. You know what it was, Dave? It was you and kind of your high touch approach. What I loved was in the group, you had us do some really thoughtful exercises that weren't easy, by the way. And I'm writing things down like, what's my messaging? And then I would share it. And I would get some feedback. And you're like, man, this is kind of really not good. This is not going to work, but here's why. And then guess what? It was like this brain trust comes together between you and some just other awesome people in the group. And I walked out of there with actual actionable copy, messaging, programs, how to market that, feedback from you and everybody else, like, this is going to work. And it was light years better than what I would do just sitting here alone in my office trying to come up with on myself. That was the difference. I think your personal coaching and your feedback, because, hearing that something's not good, especially when you're new, is really valuable.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. And sometimes it's that tough love that makes you relook at something and make it a lot better.
Yeah, man, I remember something I threw out there and you're kind of like, yeah, John, that's like about a 2 out of 10. What does the rest of the group think? And nobody else was like above a 3. And I thought it was my best work yet. I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, this is what I need. So this is awesome. And we actually got it up where people thought it was like an 8 or a 9. And man, and that's what we've been running with.
So let's catch up to today. Now, I know you have an envelope in your office. We can talk about that story.
Yep.
Or tell us about what you're doing now with the speaking fees, the coaching fees, and the kind of level that you're playing at today.
Well, in the last 12 months, I think we've had about 24 paid speaking engagements. I would say the average across those is well over 5,000 engagement, Dave. I mean, we've been able to make a very good living. And it's growing. I went and did a speech yesterday in Kansas City. That's what that envelope is from, right? It's a check for my work out there. I already have 2 emails. It was a group of CEOs, a large group, a room full. And I already have 2 emails already this morning. The speech was yesterday. I just got back last night of 2 different companies that want to follow up and ask me already for quotes on coaching, consulting, or speaking already. So what happens is you deliver, you add value, create a great experience for people. And then you know what? I have honestly in the last 2 years done 0 cold calling or anything like that. It's all been having, clarity of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And a lot of that all stemmed from the work I did with you.
Right. And a lot of the relationship marketing and following up and being of service. Here's a shocker, everybody. When John is of service to clients and he reaches out about having a conversation about how he can help them, that's when the money starts to flow and the conversations start to get fun.
Yeah, and that's always been my approach with clients. I'm sure you're the same way, right? I feel like I have to diagnose and have a good conversation with them before I can give them a prescription. Right.
Sure.
So before I make them a recommendation and say I'm a good fit, I'm going to have a conversation with you. And I have no problem saying I'm not the best fit for that. And here's a couple other people that I think would really serve you better than I could. And I think when you have that mindset, that goodwill always flows back.
Yeah, for sure. So just to recap, and I'm going to ask you then just a couple more questions about like what you might say to someone who's on the fence or sort of teetering a little bit. But even before that, you said about 24 programs over the past 12 months or so, average of $5,000. So that's like about $120,000 just in speaking revenue, not even talking about coaching income, correct?
Correct.
And then the coaching is on top of that. Tell me how your coaching rates have escalated in that time.
Well, they're still at 20. Well, actually, I just moved them up to 30,000 for a year to work with me one-on-one. I have some other packages if I'm working with a whole organization. And the 2 speaking engagements a month is actually my goal because that drives kind of the organizational training work and coaching that I do. So right now it's the perfect mix because all those put together is probably less than a third of my total income. So, but that's driving things.
Right. And that's exactly the word that we use. We call it a speaking driven business. That's perfect.
Yes, that's exactly what I didn't want to be a full-time keynote speaker. That was never my goal. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That just wasn't my business model. So,
right. Really, really good. Last couple quick thoughts here. Someone's teetering on the edge. They're like, do I go? Do I not go? Should I work with Newman? Should I not work with Newman? Is this the real deal? Will this really help me? Or is this just more kind of smoke and mirrors and fluff? What would you say to that person who's really debating, is this the right program for them?
Well, I tell them a story, Dave. Can I tell you a story? I got selected to go down to Navy flight school. This is right after Top Gun, the movie, had come out. And we were told that every 10,000 people that apply, 1 person will get a fighter. And heading down to flight school, my dad said, listen, there's going to be a student down there that everybody's talking about. He's the ace of the base. Figure out what he's doing, duplicate what he's doing, and you'll do just fine. And guess what? I did that. I found that guy. I ended up graduating number 1 and became an F-14 pilot. And I have always followed that model ever since. Go find somebody that's doing what you want to do. They're an expert. They know how to teach you what they're doing and just tuck in underneath them, but then do the work. And Dave, when I saw you speak at the breakout, that's what I saw in you. You were that kind of person, your character, who you are. And what I would tell anybody out there that if you really want to make speaking or have a speaking driven business is really what I'm doing. I'm not a full-time keynoter. My 2 engagements a month keeps me more than busy with everything else that our company does. You know what? It's now time to actually take action, invest in yourself. I've never been afraid to invest in myself. Get mentored by Dave because I know the results I have. And if you get half the results I have, I think you'll be thrilled, because I can tell you what, Dave, I thank you constantly, because you know what? My wife is my partner in this. She went through it together too, did the worksheets with me. Do you know we still go back and refer, even though it was a couple of years ago, to all of your information? It's like this constant resource and encouragement to keep moving forward. And it's been a huge blessing. So I would tell people, if you're serious about building the business, you need to go find somebody to help you. You can figure it out on your own, I have no doubt, because we're all smart people. But why take 3 years doing something that could take you 3 months?
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.